I am CharLee Simons, your host here on Do Not Talk. Talk about two things you're never supposed to talk about: politics and religion. One decides what life is going to be like here on earth. The other one decides what it's going to be like when you leave it. Makes it very important. I don't think we should ever stop talking about it. But I don't know about you. I grew up with parents and family and friends telling me don't ever talk about religion and politics. It's too divisive. Look where we are. I don't think we should ever stop talking about it, especially in the church. I didn't get saved until later in life, and I've watched what Jesus said would happen, the infiltration in his church in the last days. So if that's any indication of where we are in the timeline with Revelation, I think we're awfully close to Christ Jesus coming back and going, all right, y'all, let's go. You people are with me, which is awesome. But in the meantime, I'm not going to shut up or shut down. I'm going to keep exposing, like Ephesians 5:11, be no part of the works of darkness, but instead even expose them. I had the privilege of a few years ago going to Glad Tidings Church. It's in a little town called Yuba City. Actually, Live Oak is outside of Yuba City. And that's where Pastor Dave Bryan held a conference with Richard Mack, Sheriff Richard Mack from the CSPOA, CSPOA, Constitutional Sheriffs and Police Officers Association. And one of the guest speakers was Chris Ann Hall. I'd heard about Chris Ann. I knew she was a constitutional attorney and quite an expert on not only the U.S. Constitution, but many states. And she started giving us, hundreds of us in the audience, stats about our own Constitution in California. And then she asked the question about how many of you have ever actually even read the Constitution of California. I had to sit there and not be able to raise my hand. That's kind of dismal, but we don't know it. We don't know what's in there. So just like in church, you're easily fooled if you never read God's word. It's easy to tell you what it says if you haven't read it for yourself and to be fooled. I see so much of that. Well, same thing with the Constitution, isn't it now? Hello, Chris Ann Hall. How are
Hi.
you, my friend? Oh, it's so good to see your awesome face again.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
I hope so. I hope we have a great time because I've been wanting to talk to you and get you on the show for a while now. And hold on a quick second. My dog Spike has got to get into his little position. This is where he always is. Right there. He just jumped up. Are you a dog person?
I am.
Oh, good. What do you have?
He's a Staffordshire Terrier mix.
That's a good mix. That's a smart dog right there. Go ahead, Spike.
Smart.
Good boy. So you're based out of Florida. Have you always been there? Did you grow up there?
No, I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. My husband and I met in the military, and this is where my husband grew up. So he grew up in North Florida, and we just recently moved to the Tampa area in the last few years.
How do you like it?
I like Florida. I like it a lot, actually. I mean,
I
it
do
was
too.
just so close
You've
to so many amazing things, and I grew up with my son grew up here, and I used to tell him all the time how blessed he was because there are people all over the world that save up their entire life to just spend a few days here, and he lives here. So it really is a nice place.
a very good point. You have two great things. You have an awesome governor, and you also have waffle houses. So that makes it a very desirable place for me.
Absolutely.
I love those. We don't have those out in California. They were smart. They stayed out of this state. Unlike Cracker Barrel, which came in and opened up two restaurants, and I think they've both closed now at this point.
Yeah, but you do have Carl's Jr., which is a step up from Hardee's that we have here. So
You like that, do you? I think that's the same company, though, isn't it?
it is the same company, but they don't have the same food.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
I'm more.
I
I
was
think I'm
stationed
more
in
an
Monterey,
In-N-Out burger.
California for a few years, so I'm
What,
very
what's that
familiar
again?
with
What's
California
that?
lore.
I'm sorry, I missed you. What did you say?
I said I was stationed in California for several years, so I'm very familiar with California.
What service? What branch?
I was in the Army.
I'm an Army guy. Hooah!
Ooh-ah.
That's awesome. Tell me about your little career with the military. Shouldn't say little, big.
I was a cryptologic linguist, which is why I was stationed in Monterey, California for a few years. And then, yeah, that's where I actually met my husband. And
Good place to be stationed.
yeah,
I like that. It's
hardship tour.
a what now? Linguistic what?
Cryptologic, yeah, I was a Russian linguist.
No kidding. You speak that fluently then?
Well, I did it one time.
Yeah, it's kind of a it goes away if you don't use it. But
Yeah, my
what
husband and I still speak together, but only when we don't want other people to know what we're saying.
smart. How long were you in?
I was actually in 2 years, 2.5 years, and I broke my hip actually in a training accident, so I didn't get to finish my term.
Dang. Sorry about that. What rank were you when you left?
I went and enlisted because my end goal was to go through the medical school in Bethesda, and at the time you had to do their program called Green to Gold, which means you had to go in enlisted, you had to be accepted into the medical school, and then you would be promoted to an officer. But I already had my bachelor's degree when I went in.
How'd you get into being an attorney?
Broke my hip and couldn't go to medical school, so
That was it. You decided next
I had
best
to figure
thing.
something else out.
I'm going to start reading law books while I'm laying here. I've broken many
Whatever.
things. I've broken many things, but never one of those. Thank God.
Yeah.
But I was stunned by things you told me about here in California, and a native Californian like I am, about our own Constitution. Um, shamed me. You shamed me into not knowing and wanting to know more. So let's start there. What do we
Well, I
not
hope that I
know?
encouraged you. I didn't My intention was not to shame you, but
No, it was good.
but
That was
to
a good thing.
encourage you.
That was a good thing, and you did. What can you share with us, and not just Californians, but this is all over the nation and the world. If anybody wants to tune in and watch, um,
Yeah, so I started teaching, well, I've been teaching the US Constitution. I've made uh, documentaries on it and written 6 books on the US Constitution, and I have online trainings. And when COVID hit, it people got to see a new form of government intrusion that they had not been aware of before, and that was the state and local governments violating their state constitutions. And so at that time, I started then teaching the state constitutions. And the common thing that I saw was that every place I went and I taught the state constitutions, that I would have people come up to me afterwards, just so grateful that I had taken the time to teach them about their state constitution. And inevitably, in every single meeting, at least one, almost always a handful of people would come up to me and whisper in my ear, thanking me, and then telling me they didn't even know they had a state constitution. And so it became really, really apparent to me how successful our government education system has been in brainwashing the American people into having a central government supremacist ideology, in so much so that we don't even really understand, and we don't understand the proper role of the state in our constitutional republic design. But we have been so far taken away from our states that many people don't even know they have a state constitution.
no, it's sad, and every state does. But you're right, we don't know it, and they took civics out of the classroom. We're not learning about American government anymore as students. It started going away back when I was in school. As a matter of fact, I was
Yeah,
able to take it in college, but in high school, it wasn't even offered at my high
I'm
school.
not even sure that's a bad thing that they don't teach it, because they've never really taught it accurately. And part of the reason that we are as ignorant as we are is not by a lack of teaching, but by a teaching of wrong things. So even when we were teaching civics in the schools, in your generation, my generation, we were already not teaching it accurately. So a lot of the things that people grow up believing about our constitutional republic because they were taught in school simply are not so. So the shift from federalism to federal supremacist not, education and ideologies actually happened in our generations and before.
One of the greatest lies, being in the media my entire life, I realized very early one of the greatest lies that the media tells is never telling you anything at all, lie by omission.
Yeah.
And during the COVID shutdown, it became so apparent to me that, for example, here in California, they were passing bills without ever even bringing it to a vote, without ever even letting the public know that this was being proposed. That's how they took away the authority of the parents in this state. That's how they have forced through so many different things of the grooming of children, making it legal to where you couldn't even challenge it. It's insane. It's demonic. It's satanic.
Yes.
And they did that by waiving their own 30-day print rule. The legislature waived their own 30-day print rule. They used to be able to post it on the website or have to send it out to the media to where they could report, hey, this is being considered. What do you think of this, to get input? They waived it. Well, that's easy to do when you're the one establishing the rules for yourselves.
Mhm.
The legislature also a few years ago made it illegal for California to ever even declare bankruptcy. Yeah. How do you do that? That was crazy, but they did it. So what are they going to do? Just default and never even call it bankruptcy? It's crazy. The state is just this close to financial collapse. And as California goes, so goes the rest of the nation, whether you like it or not. You might be a red state. You might think you're protected, but financially, the state is so powerful, it will affect you even out there in Florida, wouldn't it?
Well, we are a union of states, and so we are intimately connected, and shockwaves will be sent out. Sometimes the effect has an opposite effect, but you cannot deny the effect nonetheless. I mean, there's so many things wrong with the way the state of California operates. I would argue they're already bankrupt. So I think it's just really, putting Band-Aid on a mortal wound at this point. I mean, one of the greatest problems in the state of California is a lack of constitutional representation. The Florida Constitution, I'm sorry, the California Constitution requires the House of Representatives to be set up so you have one representative per so many people in California. Well, they haven't followed that provision in the Constitution for decades. And mostly at this point because it's practically impossible for them to do that. If they followed the California Constitution regarding direct representation, the entire city of Sacramento would be the House of Representatives. And that's why you see movements throughout the state of California to split California into different states because representation in the state of California is functionally impossible at this point. And so you have so many people throughout the state of California that not only feel, but are absolutely disenfranchised from the political process because one person cannot represent millions of people.
Yeah. And New California is the latest one that you're talking about. Paul Preston has been spearheading that. State of Jefferson before that. I thought the state of Jefferson was a great idea. It's basically cutting the state in half: North Dakota, South Dakota, West Virginia, Virginia, that kind of thing. Now it's like actually breaking it up to where there's, as Paul calls them, pus pockets, like San Francisco, as I call it, in Los Angeles, still being the original California, and the rest of it being New California, which I think is a hard sell. People are never going to understand that, how that's going to work, and logistically, can it ever work, do you think?
Well, obviously, the splitting of states can work. It has worked. Problem is that the process requires permission from the state legislators to make that happen. So it happens at the local state level and at the federal level. And if you're going to split the state in a way that is not geographic, but from based on political ideology, you reduce the the practicality of doing that. And so I think it's already a difficult process for the state of California. It's a hard sell. I wish that it was not such a hard sell, but it's a hard sell even at a clear geographic break, because Southern California has been deceived into believing that they have an a water shortage that cannot exist without supply from Northern California. None of that is actually true. It's all political manipulation. But nonetheless, like I said, it's got to go through the state legislature. And with the fear that has been sown into the people of California, I think it's going to be really hard to make that happen.
I do too. I wish it would. I hope it does. And those who are promoting it, saying, "Oh yeah, it's going to happen," they can't stop it. But we'll
Yeah, I
see.
really hope that it happens, and I do believe that eventually it will happen. The question will be how. So it will either be peaceful or not. But I do believe that sooner or later it will happen. I'm just praying for a peaceful resolution.
So am I. So for the rest of the country, I'm praying for a peaceful resolution here. Let's talk about churches and pastors, not the 501c3, which has handcuffed pastors. They're scared to death to talk about anything that they deem to be political, and they've turned everything into political discussion, whether it's a COVID shot, whether it's abortion or whatever. It's the political lines have been drawn, and I think a lot of that's from the media. Uh, the the truth is, though, that I think that they are negligent in their duties of shepherding their flock and letting them know what's really going on. But they're scared to death of losing their tax exempt status. And that
Mhm.
was a Lyndon Johnson thing. President Johnson did that on purpose, I believe, and it has been quite effective. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I can tell you the facts on that. The
Please.
facts are the church does not need a 501c3 permission slip from the federal government to be tax exempt. We have established in our constitutional understanding and our history in America that churches are automatically tax exempt. And so if you have a church, you don't need a 501c3 for donations to your church to be tax exempt. That's what most people think about the 501c3. And then the second fact is that having a 501c3 does not eliminate your ability to speak on political issues. As a matter of fact, a true and honest understanding of the Bible creates a duty in the Christian to be politically active. I have a class on my Constitution training website, libertyfirstsociety.com, that actually shows the biblical references from the Bible, from the Word of God itself, where God commands his people to be politically active, not to just simply be politically active like rah, 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 we love government, but to be politically critical of government when it's not operating justly. And even defining what just government actually is. So the modern teaching from the pulpit that Romans 13 preaches and teaches that we're not allowed to be in government is actually not a modern teaching at all. It's actually a 16th century, originally Catholic doctrine that was created by a king who enlisted a political philosopher to write down the doctrine of divine appointment, in which the kings, who were now the spiritual leaders of the government, would teach the people from the pulpit, and the uh, church leaders would teach the people from the pulpit that God was directly appointed, that the king was directly appointed by God, and that to disagree with the king is to disagree with God himself, making it heresy to criticize government and to disagree with the king. And it was all a political manipulation to make the people quiet, subdued subjects of the king and every whim of government. And so that carried over into modern church as a matter of convenience and a matter of error based on the Johnson Amendment, that we now have divine appointment in government today so that the government can do no wrong in God's eyes. And that's simply just not true. And that's one of the things that we really put on display in the class at libertyfirstsociety.com, where we show Christians why God wanted the people of God to be an active and powerful voice through government, in government, and at government for just government.
Thank you for doing that. I don't so much you do is not profit driven by profit. That's not your motive. It's more education and sharing what you know and what you've learned, what you've dedicated your life to. And I thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
And I pray that it is successful for you. And I know it has been. Your website is extraordinary. You threw out a statistic that it made it very apparent that if Christians actually started stepping up and doing their civic duty, we were blessed by the Lord with a nation, a constitutional republic that actually gives us a voice for the first time in history. Mm-hmm. In who's calling the shots for us. But yet, as you said, a third of and this is a few years ago, I don't know what the stats are now, but a third of the state of California claims to be Christian, but only about 40% of them are even registered to vote. And when it comes to midterm elections and primary elections, it's dismal. It's in the teens. What the heck? What the
Well,
heck?
it's not just California, by the way. It's all of the church. We now have statistics that tell us that 75% of children who attend church regularly will leave the faith when they graduate from public education. So we have a situation where Christian parents put their children in government school 5 days a week with 2 days worth of homework, where they're getting humanist indoctrination, anti-God rhetoric, and they only, they clock in and clock out of the church for 1 hour every Sunday, and then sort of scratch their heads and wonder why our children don't stay Christians the rest of their life when they're getting indoctrination that goes entirely against the church. We just simply don't teach enough to our children about God. And part of the problem is that we end up sending our children mixed messages. We look to the government schools to be a stopgap for what's not happening in the church and what's not happening in the home. Christian parents fight to have the Bible taught in public school. Christian parents should not want the Bible taught in public school. Look what they've done to math in public school. Can you just imagine what they would do to true biblical doctrine?
Good point.
Not only that, the only reason we want public school to teach the Bible is because we're not teaching the Bible from the pulpit in the church, and we're not having Bible lessons in our homes. And so we need to be a Christian family that goes back to biblical principles, that spiritual training is to take place in the church and the home and not in the school.
Man, what a completely different world this would be. What a completely different state of California we would have if that was actually true. But it's become a babysitter, basically, hasn't it? And I feel very badly for single moms. I was raised by a single mom, and it has taken away any kind of time But just reading as I always say, a chapter a day keeps false teachers away. If you
Yeah.
just read the Bible for yourself, start with the book of John, the fourth gospel, because you'll get the whole synopsis of the life of Jesus on earth, and then keep going. And don't be afraid to read a chapter a day. It only takes 10 minutes, maybe. You can read it
Yeah.
out loud to your children. That should and could become an everyday thing. That alone, God's word has such power. That alone will change your life in positive and amazing ways.
Well, I want to thank you for having me on, and I do apologize. I'm up on a hard break. I got another meeting that's starting here in just a couple minutes. So I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be on with you and to talk about these things, and I hope we can do it again sometime soon.
I hope so too. One more time, your website?
My main hub is krisannehall.com, KrisAnnenehall.com, and our online education training, which contains children's training. It also has adult training on the Constitution, American history, and the U.S. government. Is Liberty First, and first is all spelled out, libertyfirstsociety.com.
libertyfirstsociety.com. KrisAnne Hall, honor and a privilege, and you're a blessing.
Thank you.
Such a tremendous blessing. Great talking with you again. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so
Absolutely. And you want to help this show grow? CharLeeSimons.com, CharLee. My name's Charles Lee. CharLee Simons, SIMONS.com. You can help financially. You can help support us. You can get in touch, contact me through there. Anything that you need for the show or want for the show or to be able to share shows, CharLeeSimons.com. May God bless you and keep you. May God bless America. But most importantly, America, bless God.